Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Azfar bin Ahmad Tharmizy. My metric number is 1181772. So, in this video, we are here to present the topic which is the meaning of Qada and Qadar from the Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah perspective. First of all, we go to the introduction. Qada and Qadar are the 6 pillars of faith in Islam after believing in the hereafter. It must be believed by every Muslim who holds the title of Mukallaf. The introduction of the pillars of faith has been taught or introduced to an individual since childhood. This shows how important this pillar is to every Muslim so that they are on the right path. An understanding of the meaning of believing in Qada and Qadar will lead every Muslim to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established the law of cause and effect for something created by Allah. Qada and Qadar are derived from Arabic words. Qada linguistically means determination, provision, size, measure, or nature. Qada in turn is decree of Allah written in Luh al-Mahfuz, which is preserved both since the time of Azali. This decree is in accordance with His will and applies to all beings of the universe. As for Qadar, in language, it means a decision that has happened or a decision that has been realized. Qadar in turn is the determination of decision of God, who has the nature of the Almighty, which is Qadar, over all His creation, whether in the form of good destiny or destiny that is not good or bad. God's creation is sometimes manifest after going through natural processes or following the law of cause and effect, which is called al-khalq, such as existence of children due to the existence of parents and the existence of property in the result of effort from man himself. Sometimes God's creation is realized immediately without a process, which is called al-amru, like the existence of the Prophet Isa without his father, the existence of the miracle of Prophet Isa to revive people who have died because it has been the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what the main objective in this research? This research is about to study the view of Qada and Qadar according to Al-Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah. Next, we go to the research objective. First is to identify the view of Al-Asy'ariyyah about Qada and Qadar. Second, to describe the view of Muktazilah about Qada and Qadar. And the last, to analyze and reconcile about Qada and Qadar between Al-Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhamad Nur Yassin bin Jamiran and my metric number is 1181754. And today, I will explain about why you choose the topic and second about the problem statement. First, we go to why you choose the topic. We choose this title to be our assignment because to study or see the explanation of the meaning of Qada and Qadar from the point of view of other sects. For example, the meaning of Qada and Qadar from the point of view of Ahli Sunnah and Mu'tazilah. Due to that, we choose the title to explain the views of the other scholars on the meaning of Qada and Qadar. Now, we go to problem statement. In recent years, there has been an issue of understanding the meaning of Qada and Qadar in society because it was found that they were confused with the meaning of Qada and Qadar from the point of view of the Ahli Sunnah and the view of the Mu'tazilah. The meaning of Qada and Qadar from Ahli Sunnah is everything that happens to human beings has been determined by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. But human beings also have a role in realizing their deeds because God gives them kasab. According to Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah, what is called kasab is a human act with the will of Allah working side by side. And from view Muktazilah is that man is muhayyar. That is, he has the freedom to choose and determine his own actions without the intervention of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. So, in this research is conducted to identify different opinion of the Qada and Qadar from view of Ahli Sunnah and Muktazilah. By understanding the meaning, the validity of the explanation will become clear. So, people can understand the differences opinion of meaning Qada and Qadar from view of Ahli Sunnah and Mu'tazilah. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Aniq bin Ahmad Zabri. My metric number is 1181755. Now, we move to the view of Asy'ariyyah about Qada and Qadar. So firstly, due to the fact that there are several theological streams in Islam, Qada and Qadar have different perspectives and point of view. So, in regards of destiny, Al-Asy'ariyyah claims that believing in Qada and Qadar is a pillar of faith in Islam's teachings. So this issue involves both human and God actions. According to Imam Al-Ash'ari, Allah's will is one, Qadim, and Azali, and it is integrated with all of the wills of specific deeds. Human actions are not come from human effort, but human actions are God's creation. All of the good, bad, and knowledge can be said that they are already known and have been written in the Lauh Mahfuz. So that is where Qada and Qadar have been determined, which do not alter and change. Secondly, according to Al-Asy'ariyyah, human is able to perform his own actions because human is able to distinguish between reflex and deliberate movements. There is an understanding that God has set and decided human destiny, but that man also has a role to play in it. Next, in the understanding of Al-Asy'ariyyah, the term kasb refers to the belief that human being should try and strive to achieve positive results is an unavoidable conviction. Next, based on the understanding of kasb, human is not forced by God. Human, unlike a puppet formed by a mastermind, nor is he the creator of deeds, but human gains something for his deeds. So, from this understanding, the outcome of such effort, whether it is positive or negative, is enough for human to trust in God, because it is considered as the destiny of God over his servants after effort, and it is based on God's will. For example, people who desire to be wealthy must work in order to obtain a plentiful source of income. When he has worked hard but still does not receive what he desires, the phrase tawakal is used as an effort to calm his emotions so that he does not speculate. Even they can easily declare that it is God's will. So in this case, Al-Asy'ariyyah quotes Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala words from the Quran, which is in Surah Yusuf verse 99, with the meaning, "And had your Lord willed, those on earth would have believed, all of them entirely. Then, O Muhammad, would you compel the people in order that they become believers?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Bukhari bin Muhammad Zuki, metric number 1181750. Okay, now we continue to view of Muktazilah regarding matter of Qada and Qadar. First of all, Muktazilah is one of the earliest theological school that appear in Islamic history. According to the Sunni sources, Muktazilah originated in the 8th century in Basra, now is Iraq, when Wasil bin Atta, the founder, left the teaching lessons of Hasan al-Basri after a theological dispute regarding the issue of al-manzilah bain al-manzilatain, position between two positions. Muktazilah are Islamic rationalists in their belief that religious understanding are accessible to man by means of his intelligence and reason. Compared to the Asy'ariyyah, this school make use more of intellectual and logical thinking than revelations in their decision making and reasoning. Regarding the topic of Qada and Qadar, Muktazilah strongly believe that mankind is mukhayyar, that is, he has the freedom to choose and determine his own actions without the intervention of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. As for their reasoning, we as human could not be held responsible for our actions if we do not possess free will. Denying free will would also go contrary to the Quranic concept of reward and punishment according to the justice al-adlu of Allah. Moreover, one of Muktazilah doctrine is that the view of Allah that cannot do evil. By attributing all human action to Allah, we are in fact saying that Allah is also responsible for our evil deeds. Allah, by virtue of his wisdom and justice, could only command what was right or commendable, al-ma'ruf, and prohibits what was reprehensible, al-munkar. As such, he must have the best regard for the welfare of his creatures. Muktazilah insisted on free will can be seen from their founder thought about this matter, as Wasil had criticized the determinists such as Jaham bin Safwan for making a mockery of the concept of religious obligation, taklif, and rendered the concept of divine justice as meaningless. These are the basis of the Muktazilah belief on man's freedom and God's justice. Within the Muktazilah school, there are differences of opinions about human action. Mu'tazilah call it an act of Mubashir, direct, in which the act is done by himself and the effect of his act is accepted by himself. There is another act of mutawallid, generative. This act is a movement beyond consciousness. The analogy is like a man throwing a stone into a calm water. The water moves due to the rock. The movement of the stone is an action performed by humans directly, while the movement of the water is a generative movement of rock movement. Discussions about generative action and the scope of human responsibility for such actions indicate that the Muktazilah wanted to emphasize human ability for his own actions. Abu al-Huzayl, one of Muktazilah scholar, said that human beings are capable of performing their own action and are responsible for those actions, both direct action and generative actions. While Al-Nizam, also one of the scholar of Muktazilah, said that the true generative action is not human action, but the action of God with positive ethic, in the sense that God created the character and ethic of the stone. When the stone is pushed, not then it will move. The Quranic evidence used by the Muktazilah include Surah Al-Kahfi, verse 29, Al-Isra, verse 94, Al-Ahqaf, verse 14, Al-Furqan, verse 15, Al-Waqi'ah, verse 24, As-Sajdah, verse 32, At-Tawbah, verse 82 to 95, Ar-Rahman, verse 60, An-Nisa, verse 79, and 110 to 111, Al-Hadid, verse 8, Al-Mudaththir, verse 49, Al-Taghabun, verse 2, Al-Mudaththir, verse 38, Fusilat, verse 46, Yunus, verse 30 and 108, Al-An'am, verse 104, and Al-Ra'd, verse 11. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Firman Fadhli bin Muhammad Mahroni, and my matric number is 1181774. And right now I will be presenting to you about the comparative analysis between Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah views on the meaning of Qada and Qadar. As mentioned before, the Asy'ariyyah sect views that humans' fate have been determined by Allah in the Lauh Mahfuz. The Qada and Qadar stay there unaltered and unchanged. Thus, God has set and determined humans' destiny, but in the same time, human also can put the effort in certain situation to get a better result out of a situation. This effort is what Al-Asy'ariyyah call kasb. Like mentioned in the Quran, Surah Ar-Ra'd, verse 11, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. Humans are not marionette nor animal. Marionette is a small-scale figure that is controlled by human through strings, while animal is a living thing that does not have intellect to think like humans. Humans, on the other hand, have their own intellect which can produce innovations that are useful to other humans, and they can differentiate between good and bad deeds. Humans are given options to do good or bad things, thus make them punishable for their actions in this world and the hereafter. From the perspective of Muktazilah, on the other hand, Muktazilah views that human being is mukhayyar, which means that humans have the power and freedom to choose and to act with no intervention from Allah. Muktazilah believes that through His justice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits human beings to create their own deeds, whether it's good or harmful. They deny the existence of destiny because the existence of takdir is considered to interfere with servants' acts. This will, of course, contradict Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala justice. Their other argument is they thought that humans are not punishable if they didn't possess free will. Another reason to their view is by leaning all humans' evil actions to Allah means that we are blaming Allah for human sins. Therefore, the implication of Mutazilah's principle of justice is they have given a very high priority to the use of intellect, and even what has been decided by Allah in the Quran must coincide with the assessment of good and bad on the intellect. This is wrong because Muslims must firstly refer to the Quran and Sunnah, and then followed by the interpretation of prominent Islamic scholars for the Quranic verses and the commentaries by the qualified Islamic commentators for the hadith. And thus, Muslims cannot blindly follow their intellect and also cannot blindly take the literal meaning of Quranic or hadith verses without referring to prominent scholars. And that's all from me. Thank you. Wallahu a'lam.
Next, we will move to the reconciliation of Asy'ariyyah views and Muktazilah views toward Qada and Qadar. Before that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Luqman Hakim bin Muhammad Nazri. My matric number 1181761. How to reconcile Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah views toward Qada and Qadar. The first thing to understand is believing to Qada and Qadar is an obligatory to every Muslim, as it is included in the 6 pillars of Islamic faith. the interpretation of the scholars from the different schools or sects is furu in Islamic theology, which are open to ijtihad. Depends on the understanding of the scholars from each school. In order to reconcile these two views, we must choose a view that is in line with Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. As Allah said in the Quran, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. The meaning is that in this verse, Allah said that if you have different opinion about things, you must refer to Allah and Rasul, which is Al-Quran and Sunnah. The way to reconcile the views of different schools is to look at their argument and their evidence relating to Qada and Qadar, and check their consistency of their views with Al-Quran and As-Sunnah towards Qada and Qadar. Before that, before we reconcile the views of Asy'ariyyah and Muktazilah, first we must look to the Quranic verse relating to Qada and Qadar. Allah said in the Quran, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ عِنْدَهُ بِمِقْدَارٍ, and everything with Him is by due measure. Believing in Qada and Qadar means believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Almighty in this universe to determine and regulate something that exists in this universe by His own wisdom and His will without being disturbed by any foreign power. Thing that happen or is happening or will happen is all subject to Qada and Qadar, destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have the power to determine and set all the things in this universe. Whatever happens in this universe, everything goes according to the knowledge and will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has planned from the beginning according to the rules that Allah has set in this existing world. Other Quranic verse relating to Qada and Qadar, Allah said, "O Allah, owner of sovereignty, you give sovereignty to whom you will, and you take sovereignty away from whom you will. You honor whom you will, and you humble whom you will. In your hand is all good. Indeed, you are over all things competent. You cause the night to enter the day, and you cause the day to enter the night, and you bring the living out of death, and you bring the dead out of the living, and you give provision to whom you will without account." The Quranic verse above prove that Qada and Qadar are subject to the absolute administration and authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah determine the position or condition of all creatures according to Qada and Qadar Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it is good or bad. From the Quranic verse that have been mentioned before, we can say that Muktazilah views is not consistent with Al-Quran, as they believe man have the freedom to choose and determine his own action without the intervention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even their intention is to tanzih or cleanse the bad deeds or bad will of man to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but their argument is contrary to the absolute power and provision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the result, the view that is consistent with the Quran is according to the view of Asy'ariyyah school, that human action are not come from human effort, but human action are God creation. All of the good, bad and knowledge can be said that they are already known and have been written in the Lawh Mahfuz. That is where Qada and Qadar have been determined, which do not alter and change, but human beings should try to should try and strive to achieve positive result and try to do good deeds and change their life by the concept of kasbi to achieve happiness in this world and afterlife.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Firdaus bin Asman. My number matric is 1182657. So here I will continue our presentation, which is conclusion and suggestion. So as my member mentioned earlier, there are two types from our content, which is Asy'ariyyah view and Muktazilah view. So here I will explain more and conclude more about Asy'ariyyah view and Muktazilah view and what we suggest to prefer more. So here in conclusion, Asy'ariyyah claims that believing in Qada and Qadar is a pillar of faith in Islam teaching. This issue involves both human and God action. According to Al-Asy'ariyyah, God is the absolute creator where no one can force him to do or repudiate anything. Furthermore, according to Asy'ariyyah, humans can perform their own activities because they can distinguish between reflex and purposeful movements. There is a belief that God has determined the fate of mankind. So here, as you guys can see, there is Asy'ariyyah claims that believing in Qada and Qadar is a pillar of faith in Islam's teaching. So next, I will go through to the Muktazilah views, or we can call them the Qadariyah and Mu'tazilah's views. So here, I will conclude that Muktazilah claims that human beings are mukhayyar, which is they have the freedom to choose and determine their own actions without the intervention of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, which means everything that happen is of one's own will. Last but not least, here we suggest that we discuss ourselves and we take from opinion from others members. So we decide to suggest that everyone must understand the true meaning of Qada and Qadar, so that Muslims do not misunderstanding about this concept. Furthermore, we suggest to prefer more to Al-Asy'ariyyah and Al-Maturidiyah views, because all these have been destined not to change the slightest change on what is written in which is Luh Mahfuz. So the effort is the foreign thing. People need to try not because the effort, but effort will change destiny, but because no one knows what is what is destined by God, because effort is a gift from God to a people. So lastly, here we decide to suggest you guys to prefer more to the Asy'ariyyah views. So that's all from me. Thank you.